Hi everybody, my name is Randy Lamadilo, a graduate student of the Northeastern Mindanao State University in Tadag City campus taking Doctor of Education in English Language Teaching. And today we'll be talking about language assessment for language development program. Alright, so you may be encountering a lot of strategies and methodologies that talks about language assessment and how is this going to be implemented in our schools or even in our communities or in the graduate school or in the higher education. Now, today we'll be talking about that more, and of course, how can this language assessment be used in our process of making or creating a separate language development program for our class, for our school, or even in our community. Welcome to our video lecture for today. This is language assessment for language development program.
What is language assessment or language testing? Let's try to look at various perspectives. Language assessment or language testing is a field of study under the umbrella of applied linguistics. Its main focus is the assessment of first, second, or other language in the school, college, or university context. Assessment of language is used in the workplace, and assessment of language in the immigration, citizenship, and even asylum contexts. The assessment may include listening, speaking, reading, writing, and integration of two or more of these skills or other constructs of language ability. Equal weight may be placed on knowledge, which is understanding how the language works theoretically, and proficiency, which is the ability to use the language practically, or greater weight may be given to one aspect or the other. On another perspective, language testing is a broad category of testing that assesses aspects of a person's ability to understand or communicate in a particular language. Language testing is used for a variety of purposes. In an academic settings, language testing can assess a student's current abilities or progress for the purposes of academic placement. In professional settings, language testing can determine whether a candidate has the language skills needed for a job. Whatever the context, language assessments can effectively measure a person's language abilities. There are three main concepts in determining meaningful language assessment: validity, which means that what is assessed should actually be assessed. Reliability refers to the accuracy of the decisions made from the assessment. And visibility means that the assessment has to be practical. A language assessment can cover one or more of the following four key skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. What is the main purpose of language assessment? Let's try to talk about functions of assessment. Assessment of language learning serves one of two functions: either to measure learners' proficiency without reference to a language course, or to measure the extent to which they have achieved the goals of a particular program of learning. Within the latter function, it is usual to distinguish between formative and summative assessment. Formative assessment takes place during the course of learning in order to provide learners with feedback on their progress and alert the teacher to any aspects of the course that may need adjustment. It is sometimes referred to as assessment for learning. Summative assessment takes place at the end of the course and seeks to measure overall learning achievement. It is sometimes referred as assessment of learning. The value of language testing. Language testing is a valuable tool both in language learning contexts and in professional ones. Language tests can define where a student is in their current knowledge and reveal the path forward to greater proficiency. Professionals can use language testing to determine whether their skill set meets the criteria of a job or whether they need further training. At the same time, employers can certify their employees and new hires levels of language proficiency and ensure that they are able to successfully complete the tasks required of them without creating risk for the organization. Language is complex and assessing it can be a complicated endeavor. Thankfully, experts have created tests that effectively assess a person's language skills. As an instructor, employer, student, or professional, all you have to do is take advantage of these tests to get a useful measure of language proficiency. The forms of language assessment. Measuring language proficiency is a complex process that necessitates the use of valid and reliable language testing tools. Language assessments take various forms depending on the skill or proficiency level being tested. The forms of language testing. There are 5 main types of language assessments: the aptitude, diagnostic, placement, achievement, and proficiency tests. Aptitude tests. Aptitude refers to a person's capacity for learning something. Language aptitude tests assess a person's ability to acquire new language skills. Because of the nature of these tests, they are more general than most other language tests and don't focus on a particular language. Instead, they assess how quickly and effectively a person is able to learn new language skills. An employer might use an aptitude test, for example, to select the best employees to take language courses so they can aid in the setup of a new international branch or provide bilingual customer service. On a diagnostic test, most test takers encounter questions or tasks that are outside the scope of their abilities and the material they are familiar with. The results of the test reveal the strengths and weaknesses in one's language abilities. Having a student's diagnostic test results can help teachers formulate lesson plans that fill the gaps in the student's capabilities. Students can also use diagnostic tests to determine which areas they need to work on in order to reach a higher level of proficiency. Placement tests. Placement tests share some similarities with diagnostic tests. They are used for educational purposes and are administered before a course or program of study begins. In this case, the application is a bit different. Educators and administrators use placement tests to group language learners into classes or study groups according to their ability levels. A university may give a placement test, for example, to determine whether a new French major needs to take introductory French courses or skip over some courses and begin with more advanced classes. Placement tests are also an important type of test in English language teaching at the university level, since international students typically come in with different English learning backgrounds and proficiency levels. Achievement test. An achievement test evaluates a student's language knowledge to show how their learning has progressed. Unlike diagnostic, aptitude, and placement tests, achievement tests only cover information the student should have been exposed to in their studies thus far. Achievement tests are typically given after a class completes a certain chapter or unit or at the conclusion of the course. A language teacher may give a final exam at the end of the semester to see how well a student has retained the information they were taught over the course of the semester. Achievement tests are typically graded and are meant to reflect how well the language tester is performing in their language learning studies. Proficiency tests. Proficiency refers to a person's competency in using a particular skill. Language proficiency tests assess a person's practical language skills. Proficiency tests share some similarities with achievement tests, but rather than focusing on knowledge, proficiency tests focus on the practical application of that knowledge. Proficiency tests measure a language user's comprehension and production against a rating scale. In a research published in the Language Education and Nation Building titled A New Politics of Language in the Philippines, Bilingual Education and the New Challenge of the Mother Tongues by Ruani Tupas and Beatriz P. Lorente. The Bilingual Education Program of the Philippines, or BEP, where English is the medium of instruction in science and mathematics and Filipino, the national language in all other subjects, has been recognized as one of the earliest comprehensive bilingual education experiments in the world. The BEP was institutionalized in 1974, and since then, it has been the broad framework of the educational system of the country. Prior to 1974, English had been practically the sole medium of instruction in the Philippines since 1901, when the public education system was put in place by the Americans. And now, let us try to take a closer look. What does an effective language development program should look like? Extensive research in the field of second language acquisition supports bilingual programs as effective models for second language acquisition. Extensive research in the field of second language acquisition supports bilingual programs as effective models for second language acquisition. Researchers maintain that bilingual education promotes high levels of literacy in both the native and target languages. In planning instruction that emphasizes biliteracy development, teachers need to, first, understand the theoretical principles of second language acquisition, to implement second language acquisition program models. Plan instruction around themes to maximize learners' opportunities for language and academic development. Third, integrate the language arts skills like speaking, listening, reading, and writing in every instructional unit. Follow a progression that moves from a teacher-guided approach to higher levels of independent work. Stimulate high levels of student involvement and participation in class. Next is make use of a variety of teaching strategies to help learners develop concept and critical thinking skills. Conduct an ongoing assessment to monitor English language and literacy development. Engage in collaborative efforts with administrators to ensure that the program is congruent with sound pedagogical principles. Infuse multicultural literature into the curriculum to promote appreciation of their own and each other's culture. Engage in continuous professional growth and reflection on their teaching practices. And advocate for English language learners by being informed about research on programs and modes of delivery of instruction. All models of instruction assume high levels of support from family, school administration, community, and well-trained teachers with background on both first and second language development.
Alright, that ends our lesson for today, and always remember that whenever we create a development program for language skills of our students, it should be based on the needs of our students, our class, our school, or even our community, so that we can provide solutions somehow to the existing problems we have when it comes to language skills of our students. My name is Randy Lamadilao. See you next time in our next video. God bless and have a great day. Bye!